Hi, and welcome to the Catalytic Leader Podcast, episode 5. Today, we're wrapping up this season with our conversations about how catalytic leaders are equipping others to become people who are abiding and living missional lives. We're excited to wrap this up with talking about some different models about what it looks like to be a catalytic leader, leading the people around you and equipping each other for ministry. We're going to talk a little bit about what the metric is that we're using in churches, because again, like we've talked about in other episodes, today the church does not look like it did. The world does not look like it did 20 years ago. Finally, we're going to spend some time looking forward to season 2 and looking at ways that you can connect more with this team. Thanks for joining us. Have a listen to episode 5.
Hey, friends, welcome to the Catalytic Leader Podcast. I'm Michael here with my friends Jerry and Fred, and we're super excited. We're going to be wrapping up this first season with just a few things. Maybe this is like a junk drawer episode where there's a few things that are rattling around in our head that we feel like would be nice to kind of weave together. But ultimately, too, we're wanting to just invite you to come along with us. If this is stuff that you're interested in, we'd love to hear from you, connect with you, and we'll talk about some of the ways to be able to do that. So, all right, guys, before we jump into the conversation further, start us off. What's something new for you guys? Fred, I'll go to you first. What's new, Fred?
Well, I got a new golf bag.
Nice.
I figured if I needed a new, well, part of the reason was the old golf bag that I had was not fitting on the push cart that I have. It's one of those where you put it down, the legs pop out. What I've discovered is you got to have one with a more square bottom, and then it latches on. So, and it also fits in a power cart better.
There you go. Which is what Fred uses anyway, right? He doesn't walk the course.
I feel like there was a dig somewhere in there.
Brand new driver needs to be cradled in a new baggie.
And that's the other
like
thing. It has the individual places for the clubs.
There you go.
It all messed up, and I put it back where I got it from instead of at the end of the day having my clubs all wrapped around each other, and it has a cooler built into it.
Dang.
Okay.
That's awesome.
So it keeps my whatever drink I have, like a can of pop or something.
Yeah.
Or something.
That's good. Jerry, what about you? What's new for you?
Shoot, nothing new under the sun, man. Just same old thing. Living the dream.
That's good. How about this thing?
I actually got nothing. I mean,
what's something you've done recently that you have really enjoyed, or what's a regular go-to for you?
Well, I'm a hamburger French fry guy. So we went to a place downtown recently, a brand new burger joint that was amazing. Man, I wish I could remember the name.
Hello Burger?
No. It was called Smash Burgers.
Oh
yeah. Love a good smash burger.
Yeah, it was probably a 9.5 out of 10. The burger was fantastic. If I think of the name, I'll let you know.
Oh, your cholesterol went up for sure.
Well, hey, that's what statins are all about, man.
That's good. Well, I'm remembering. I'm gonna kind of like lay this next to one of Fred's recent what's new. He talked about putting together furniture not too long ago. I got for Father's Day, not too far back, I got a gun safe that I can mount in between the studs in my wall. So I cut out a hole and it's supposed to fit perfectly in there. The studs that I happened to choose were not perfectly fitted on 16-inch centers. And so I was like just over a quarter inch off. So I had to trim away at that and get it installed in there. But it is really nice. Everything is locked up, secure, fingerprint technology that's on there. So it's pretty sweet. Yeah. So that's something that's new. I'm excited about.
I think I have that same safe for my golf clubs.
I use eyeball technology myself.
Oh, retina.
Oh, that's good. Well, hey, Jerry, I'm going to hand it to you first. I know that one of the things that if somebody were listening into all of our episodes for this season, they would hear just there have been cultural changes that we've been through as a people. And I know that's something that we can dig into further. So take us in, but kind of lead out that conversation about just the wider cultural issues that may affect any of these Jesus-shaped, living situations.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, our overall picture here in Church of God Northwest is we've talked about pioneering and developing a Jesus-shaped landscape in the Pacific Northwest, right? And so, what does that look like? We talked a little bit about it in a recent episode about just this shift from Christendom away from that, this notion that, that the church was at the center of society. And, as we've seen, the church is moving farther and farther away. It used to be the go-to place where people went to find answers, spiritual answers, even practical answers to some of their needs. And we're moving farther and farther away from that. So it requires us as the church to make a cultural shift in our understanding of what it means to be the church, what it means to bring the kingdom to our neighborhoods, not the neighborhoods to our kingdom. And I think that's it's easy to talk about, but it's really hard to do because we're so stuck in that, as we've talked about earlier, Sunday centric model where, come to us and experience Jesus. And I think, I don't want you to hear me say that there's not a place for the gathering of God's people, but I think
so
it's
important.
As we start shifting our mindset about this Jesus-shaped landscape, it's going to look a whole lot different. And so I think we need those pioneers who are going to say, hey, let's try some new things. We hear about dinner churches and coffee house churches and even, of course, not in the Church of God, but pub churches, right? And I think we need to start thinking culture shift, culture change, understanding that the way we've done church. There's nothing wrong with the way we've done church in the past, but we need to find different models in order to engage our.
So good.
As you say that, I'm sitting here in my mind and I'm going, oh wow. It's been at least 15 years since the last time I did a wedding in a church.
Right.
That long. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, and I've done tons of them, but they've been at wedding venues, they've been in hotels, they've been out in the woods, they've been on the beach, they've been everywhere but a church.
Yeah. The church is no longer really a go-to place for even what we think of as a sacred event, right? So go ahead, Michael.
I'm even thinking about the implications that has for the minister or the leader that may be a part of it. Like if the culture has changed that much, I know a lot of people that were trained on a model of ministry for a culture that no longer exists, and so it's like you come equipped with a skill set that fit a previous generation or a previous time, and you don't know necessarily how to be able to do that work of ministry in a very different place. And so it can't be difficult. I think that might be some of the reason why, as you talk about maybe some of the up or the in dimension things, why people turn to certain patterns of ministry for up, where, hey, I don't know that anybody would really say this, but sometimes, like, hey, I'm the spiritual service provider here. I'm the one that has the answers, whether it's the Bible answer man or woman, or, like we're the one that is on every one of the boards that's making the decision. We've got all the answers, or we're the visionary leader. It's not that any of those are wrong, but a lot of them were just past models of ministry. And again, why we're saying we've got to be abiders is because in order to bear fruit in a very different context where the landscape has changed so much, we've got to be really closely connected to Jesus and then operating out of that identity that's firmly fixed by him. Kind of same thing. You could run it with the equippers too. So go for it.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I think part of the struggle is too that our model is built on, people coming to the church, giving their tithes and offerings in order to sustain the full-time pastoral minister, right? And I mean, Fred goes out weekly to different congregations. I'm part of a congregation that's struggling with making that model work. Let's just put it that way. And I think there's a lot of our congregations doing that. And so, we talk about bivo or co-vocational ministry, but I mean, I'm one who has benefited from the generosity of
Yeah.
God's people in my economic life. And so at my age, thinking
Yeah.
about doing something different, being co-vocational or bivocational, which I am. I mean, I'm bivocational, but my other job is a ministry job too, which affords flexibility. So I mean, those are some other issues that I think we need to talk about. How are we going to shift our mindset in that kind of environment? And I think we still hold the megachurch out as the model, right? We're
Yeah.
still, whether, I know there are people who say, oh, well, that's not the model. That's not what we're moving forward toward, but let's be honest. That's really what we hold out as, as what we're all shooting for. So.
And because of their size, they're gobbling up all the little guys. But I keep thinking of the movie Footloose. That pastor, the scene where his daughter comes in and watches him practicing his sermon.
Yeah, right.
And his motions and everything. And then in the end, he has to make a shift. And they find a way where the kids can dance across the county line.
Right. Are we going to love the world on the world's terms, or are we going to dig our heels in and say, you got to do it our way, come to our buildings in order to find Jesus? That's a great example. I'm feeling a song. Loose. Okay.
Just don't make it, man.
Yeah.
Well,
hello, everyone. My name is Lorenzo Peterson, affectionately called Pastor Zoe, and this episode is sponsored by Warner Pacific University, founded by the Church of God in 1937. We are raising students to have Christ-centered leadership and service, and our motto here comes from Jeremiah 29:11. Of course, that talks about purpose, and our own logo, WP, stands for with purpose. And listen, we are igniting a flame of purpose that can never be extinguished in our students, and we are very excited about that. And we are inviting you pastors and community leaders to re-engage with Warner Pacific University as we continue to raise up leaders to go out and do God's bidding in the kingdom. We are shaped by this movement's values. Our shared story, 90 years strong, is simply this, from the old hymn: because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Because I know who holds the future, and life is worth the living just because he lives. For more information about what God is doing at his university, you can go to our website, warnerpacific.edu.
Another one of the things that we've talked about is not just has the culture changed, but like, what do we count? I think we're kind of already hitting this to some degree, but how do you know that we're winning? If it's not just one model, like you last said, Jerry, and that's what means a church made it, a pastor made it, like, what do we count? What kind of metrics are we running by? Fred, what do you think on that topic?
Well, I think being an evangelist and coming from an organization that was an evangelical evangelism organization, there's so many E words. But I remember all of our donors, the criteria for them was how many souls got saved last week.
Yeah.
And then when that number dropped over time, and the reason it dropped was because you can't just give an altar call and everybody's ready and they come forward and you say, and all these shows that used to come on TBN and PTL and all of the Christian stations. I remember talking to my mom one time because she was really into TBN. I said, Mom, I sat here with you all afternoon and I could hear her in the back of my mind because her TV set was running. One evangelist after another from show to show. Last night, thousands came to know Jesus. And I said, Mom, 5 or 6 people said that. Now, this stuff is said every day. If they say this for a year, how long before shouldn't the whole world be saved by now?
That's right. That the whole world may know.
Yeah.
And she looked at me like, because I just upset her world, because that metric was a false sense of security.
Yeah.
And what it takes to lead someone to Christ takes so much longer, takes a lot deeper things, because, if we use Maslow's pyramid of hierarchy, sometimes before I can minister to somebody, I got to feed them because they're starving. They may be homeless, they may be whatever. So once that need is met, they can move up to the next level. Eventually, we get them to a place where they're comfortable now. Now they're ready to hear the gospel. All of that takes time. Right. So when we talk about what do we measure, is it how many scalps we have? Or is it how many changed lives? Or is it what's the impact? Are there people reproducing themselves? I would almost think that if I led Jerry to Christ, which I very had the opportunity to do many,
hopefully someday,
because he was a little boy when I met him. That tells you about our age difference. And then Jerry, over time, has led someone to Christ, or maybe 2 or 3 people, and then another and another. Now we have multiplication. So the metrics, when they talk about parenting and all of that, they say it's your grandparents. What's reflective of them is what happens with the grandkids, not their own children. And so all of those are new metrics that we look at. But, is there any one metric that fits everything? I don't think so.
Yeah, I hear you.
And we come from a mindset that one cup fits all. And I don't know about you, if you've ever tried any of these T-shirts they make where they go one size fits all. It's great for a big guy like me, 6'2", 250, But when my wife puts it on and she's only 5'5", and
don't say it. Don't say it.
Say what? Say what? What?
How much you weigh? Come on, Fred.
Oh, that didn't even cross my mind.
Good for you. Good husband.
And that's because I want to live. But it drapes on her. And I go, this is not one size fits all. And we see that clash between the smaller churches and the bigger churches, because when we have seminars and workshops, if it's presented by somebody in a big church, the little guys go, that won't work where we are. And if it's presented by a smaller guy, well, that don't make sense. What you're reporting, we did 10 times that. So I guess that's a question that only each ministry can really answer, is when do you know you have impact?
Yeah.
Well, I think Michael was talking about person of peace in one of our episodes. And, I think, what if we started measuring how many people we had around our dinner table?
People of peace, yeah.
Or how many people of peace that we're in relationship with.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and I think, Fred in a previous episode referenced the Ingle scale from one of the books that he was quoting from. This idea, like there's this threshold where you cross the line of surrendering your life to Christ, but there are all these negative steps. That's probably not the right way to put it, but negative markers on the scale that show somebody further from making that decision for Jesus. I think in the changes that I made from like leading a church in Central California to being here running a business on the Oregon coast, I'm noticing that most of the people, when I led a church, I was dealing with them either right before that decision or after that decision. And I didn't deal with very many people who were on the far end of the spectrum, far from Jesus. That was theoretical. Right now, almost everybody that I know is on that far side. There's a few people, but it's like they are the outliers that like either are believers or are close to it. And so what I've had to realize is that what I counted then at close to the 0 mark is very different than the things that I count now. So like what you were saying, Jerry, do I have any people of peace? And do I have a spot where I can invite them to come in? Those are different metrics than how many people have recently surrendered to Jesus. Because if you measure me by that, I'm failing, but we're doing the early work to kind of cultivate the soil so that any of those types of measurements could be made in the future. That's a key difference.
What's difficult about that too is, I'm glad you said that, because where on the chain am I? Am the beginning link or the end link? When Grant, because that's part of the metrics. maybe I moved them from -8 to -4, but they moved away. But because they're at -4, they encountered someone who moved them to -2. Was I not effective in ministry? You know,
Right.
and what does Scripture say? Some plant, some cultivate, some harvest. You know, so we don't know where we are. So all we can really measure is where we are with that person when we meet them, and where we are down the road in our relationship with them over time.
This episode is sponsored by Servant Solutions, serving those who serve since 1949. Born from the Church of God's vision to care for ministers and their families, Servant Solutions has grown from a simple pension board into a trusted partner for retirement planning, financial education, and holistic support for church staff. We remain dedicated to empowering those in ministry with wise planning and stewardship tools for every season. Learn how Servant Solutions can help you plan faithfully and care well for those you serve. Visit servantsolutions.org to find out more.
That's good. Wait, one of the other kind of grab bag topics that we had mentioned were the idea of vehicles that we're using. And so, in the past, I know that as I was regional pastor in Central California, the vehicle that I could invite you to is come to our annual meeting, or hey, we're going to have a pastors gathering this month at such and such church. But we've been using some vehicles lately that we've been finding really, really helpful, not just to connect, but to really kind of build further relationship. We've really been talking about celebrating collegiality, seeing ministers from different contexts kind of growing together and building that camaraderie that comes from being in the trenches together and sharing lives together and having common language. And so one of those vehicles that we've used, the smaller of the two, is a huddle. So, we've got leaders that each of us meet with on a weekly or bi-weekly. We've got different rhythms for that, but we've got these ongoing connections where either we're reading books together or talking about discipleship tools and leadership tools together. And through that slow drip, you mostly using Zoom for us because we're all, distant from one another. We're really getting the chance to get into one another's lives and to grow deeper. Anybody want to share a story about how using huddles has been helpful for you to see?
What's the difference between a huddle and a small group? I have a small group at my church. I think in a small group, you enter a little bit into a person's life as the group encounters stuff, but they're giving their opinions. And you guys have heard me say that there's a level of honesty, more honest and most honest. I think in a small group, you get the honest and maybe more honest. But it's in the huddle because I have to deal with me in terms of relationship. If I'm going to move forward, I have to be most honest. So the discipleship process now is the group holds me accountable for where I go from this point.
Absolutely. It's good, guys. Awesome. I love it. Well, thanks for joining us for season 1. We can't wait to be able to get more stuff out to you guys soon. Take care.
Yeah, some people drove 3 hours to be, and one of the people that was there actually drove up 2 hours, spent the night in Portland, and then drove to Seattle because he was preaching at the church of one of our huddle members up in Seattle.
That's really cool. Really good. No, I just love the format. I mean, as we walk through, what do we hear and Holy Spirit saying to us? And we don't just leave it there. Then it's okay, what are we going to do about it? I think that's the key difference between a typical small group where we're just processing information to moving toward transformation, right? I think the transformation comes when we in step with what Holy Spirit's encouraging us to do. And then we've got it, like Fred said, we got that accountability, Okay, can we check in with you next week about how you did that? That's
sharpens iron. And as one shares his struggles or her struggles, another person says, we went through that. So there's something about coming together, especially when it's live. And it's really cool to see them laying hands on one another and praying for each other.
Yeah. I mean, the relational dynamic's been beautiful. I mean, one of the things we dreamed about as a team, as we were thinking through Catalytic Leader, was find a vehicle to connect people. And it's so amazing to see as we watch people who we would never think would be in relationship with one another, sitting there talking and laughing and crying together, people from different age categories, or I mean, it's just, you wouldn't take these two people and put them together and say, oh, you guys are going to form deep bonds, but there's something about being together, sharing meals together, being in close proximity, listening to my brother snore together, now I'm meddling.
Michael snores?
I mean, it is ripe for connection and relationship. I think that's one of the things that we as Church of God Northwest have really been trying to cultivate, and I think it's a real hunger. And if you're not part of one of our learning communities, it's well worth the time, the effort. Yeah, so in season 2, we're going to continue on with this theme of catalytic leader, what it means to develop leaders. We're going to, spend some time again, maybe fleshing out more what it looks like to abide, what it looks like to be an equiper, what it looks like to be a missionary. We're going to have some interviews with some folks that are on the front lines of each of these categories who, have really pressed in some ways that we can learn from them. Not that they've got all the answers, but certainly, I mean, we're all learners, right? And I'm looking forward to some of the conversations that we're going to have as we do some deep dive into that. We're going to talk about some other tools that you can use in your ministry, other tools that you can use in your own lives to increase your connection with both God and your neighbors. I'm looking forward. It's going to be a lot of fun. Great conversations yet to be had.
Yeah. And I really think, especially to those of you who are listening to us today, we have enjoyed the fruits of this thing immensely, but we've also been able to see change lives. We didn't mention it before, but there are a couple of people who actually told us in feedback, I wouldn't be in ministry today if I hadn't had this. It rescued some people. Not that was the intent, but because of the depth and the context of what we do, people felt rescued. I don't know what other word to use. Encouraged. Because ministry can be discouraging. And so I want to invite you, if you're sitting out there listening to our podcast today, connect with us. You can go to our website, chognorthwest.org, and then /connect. So that's Chog, CHOG, spell out the word Northwest, .org /connect. And think about, maybe you can join us in a learning community. Maybe you can join us in a huddle or simply a workshop. There are all kinds of ways. What would interest you? So I know we're running out of time, but there's an invitation to you to come and see.
Yeah, because I think too often we, when we don't have the answers or when we're stuck, the default is to just try to go it alone, gut it out, be by myself, or when we're struggling, I don't want to share my struggles with anybody, but we are better together.
Yeah.
Hey, come west, young man. Come west, young woman. If you're sensing a call to join the work of pioneering and developing a Jesus-shaped landscape in the Northwest, we want to hear from you. Whether you're a pastor, a leader, a church planter, simply curious about how God might use you here, take the step. Visit chognorthwest.org /come west and fill out the form there. Let's dream together about what God can do through you in the Northwest. That's chognorthwest.org /come west. Come west.